funded international project as well, which is designed to use virtual reality technology to encourage individuals to partake in physical activity. So this is specifically designed for young people with a diagnosis of autism. So it also promotes social inclusion and equal opportunities. So the app that was designed for this is a table tennis simulation. So I will hand over to Rachel now, and she can give you an overview of the project. So Rachel, are you there?
I am here, yeah. Just share my screen.
Oh, lovely. We're sorted. We can hear. Good start. Thank you so much. I'll mute me now.
Okay. Okay, hopefully you can see the screen okay. So hello, my name is Rachel Fitzpatrick and I am a research assistant on the SPOUT project. So the SPOUT project is about inclusion in sport, and today I'm just going to present our involvement within the SPOUT project within the University of Galway and our results as well so far. So the SPOUT project is a European Union funded project that is focused on sport and autism. And the aim of the project is to increase physical activity and participation in sport among autistic individuals. SPOUT aims to teach table tennis skills to autistic individuals using virtual reality and the virtual reality app that we have designed. And we have been working with partners from Greece, Spain, Turkey and Cyprus to develop a training curriculum for our coaches and to develop a virtual reality app to enable individuals with autism to learn the skill of table tennis. And within the University of Galway, we have a research group called the Applied Behavioural Research Clinic. And for the SPOUT project, as it's within different countries, within Ireland, Dr. Helena Lydon and Dr. Kieran Gunning are the head leads within the project for the university, and myself and Esther are research assistants within the SPOUT project. So for today, for just a quick presentation on the SPOUT, what I'm going to discuss is just the aims of the project, understanding inclusion within sports, and then the SPOUT project itself and our current progress. As it's an ongoing project, we're halfway through it at the moment, so I will present the pre-test results and then kind of midway review. So our aims for the SPOUT project. There was 5 key aims for the project for SPOUT. So the first one was to develop and design a curriculum for sports coaches who would support autistic adolescents through an e-learning platform. So within this, what we did was we designed videos, lecture slides, exercises and assessments, all for the e-learning platform. Then the next step then was to develop a toolkit, so the VR application, to teach each skill within the table tennis. So Amiga Tech, who are in Greece, they developed the VR application. So they looked at the environment, colours, what needs to be in the room, were all chosen to ensure that an environment was suitable for our participants. Then the next thing was to develop a certification system for our coaches. So once our coaches went through the curriculum and the e-learning platform, then they needed to be certified. So the Cyprus certification company developed a certification system for our coaches, and each coach then was certified after the final assessment when they went through the curriculum. Then the next step was to train coaches. So there was between 3 and 5 per country that each country had to train the coaches for their curriculum. And to go through each component and complete the final assessment. And then the final step, which we're at the moment, is to teach autistic individuals in each of the countries the table tennis skills using the virtual reality. So as we have the different countries, we have Greece, Cyprus, Turkey, Spain and Ireland. Just before we move on to the aims of the project, first of all, we just want to go through what understanding inclusion in sport is and incorporating research evidence and individual perspectives. So before we trained the coaches, a literature review was conducted. So it looked at the barriers and facilitators for participation in sports and the physical activities for autistic adolescents. So the literature review was done for papers from 2011 to 2019. And each article and paper reported the perspective of 57 autistic adolescents aged between 13 and 19 years of age across a variety of sports and physical activities. So these included swimming, cycling, horseback riding, dancing, archery, and walking. So just some of the sample barriers from the literature review that were discussed was some barriers for participation was playing video games or computer games, tiredness, lack of peer companion, parent time or access was a huge barrier, lack of programs, resources, and safety. Then we looked at the facilitators and participation in sports, and what was identified was enjoyment, physical benefits, social support, so that included parents, peers, and siblings, pets, equipment, resources, and the weather. So after then, when the literature review was conducted, a survey and advisory groups were conducted. So each country did a survey and advisory groups within the SPOUT project. So the advisory groups consisted of 3 types of participants. So the first was autistic adolescents, then family members and caregivers, and then professionals who train coaches or professionals who train or coach sports. So within the advisory groups, we asked certain types of questions, trying to get a little bit more information to understand the individual perspective of participation in sports and what the barriers facilitators may be and their attitudes towards sports. So some of the questions we looked at was the choice of activity, physical activity levels. We asked about their social activity levels, their support needs, their attitudes towards sports, some of the barriers they have faced when participating in sports, some of the facilitators, so what they like about sports, and then the impact of sports on their quality of life. And then we asked for suggestions for sports. So they were aware that the app was being developed and what kind of supports, we asked them what kind of support they would like within the program. So after then, when we conducted the advisory groups, the next thing then was to design the SPOUT project. So within the SPOUT project, there was 2 types of training we were doing. So the first type was training coaches through the e-learning platform, and then was training autistic adolescents to learn how to play table tennis through virtual reality. So the first part of the SPOUT project was that for each participating country, they had to certify at least 5 coaches within the curriculum during October. So we certified all our coaches by October. Ireland certified 7 coaches altogether. So coaches were from clubs around Ireland who either identified or were supporting a child or adolescent with autism, or who wanted to gain knowledge on how to support an individual with autism in sport. So the curriculum consisted of 3 modules. So the first one was autism. And within that, then it was broken down to different topics. So within the autism module, there was 9 topics altogether. And each topic consisted of lecture slides, videos, supplementary material, and exercises they could engage in after each topic. Some of the topics we looked at within autism was the characteristics, the potential barriers and facilitators, sports and physical activity, and participation. So just broadly understanding what autism was, and so that they could be aware of it for further on within the curriculum. Then the next thing we looked at was autism and table tennis. So this was teaching table tennis techniques. So we were introducing what kind of skills we were going to teach, how we would support skill development, what procedures and what supports needed to be in place, how we could use behaviour support, and how we can promote interaction among peers. And then finally then, the last module was virtual reality training. So we introduced what virtual reality was, what the app would look like, how we might motivate participation within virtual reality, how we can support the individual to use the virtual reality and to provide a safe and comfortable environment. And the VR application itself, what it looked like, what key things need to be put in place and how to use it. So what was the different things we had to do within the virtual reality. And then when the coaches had completed all 3 of the modules, they then have to complete a final assessment. So which consisted of 40 questions from each of the 3 modules. And if they passed, they received a certification. So within their certification, they were certified as coaches with knowledge of autism and table tennis. So after then, when we had our 7 coaches certified as coaches with knowledge of autism and table tennis, then we moved on to teaching table tennis skills with virtual reality to autistic individuals. So when we were teaching the skills of table tennis, they involved 5 key table tennis skills. So this included developing control, hitting against a wall or a folded table, how to serve, how to receive a serve, and how to receive a passing shot. So we broke down each of the skills within table tennis we broke down all of the skills into certain types of sessions and skills and broke them down even further. So within each skill, it had different levels. So for example, if we look at skill 2, so hitting against a wall or a folded table, this consisted of 3 levels of teaching. So within the first level, we looked at how to use the forehand drive. Then we looked at how to use the backhand drive. And then when the third level then was combining the forehand and the backhand. So what we did was we broke down each skill into certain levels, and each week then in each session, we would teach that skill. So each week participants attend the School of Psychology within the university for about an hour and a half of the session. And the session involves teaching the skills through virtual reality. So we have practice sessions on the virtual reality where they have the virtual reality headset on for 15 minutes, and then they have a timed session. And then they take the headset off for a while to give them a break, and then we practice on the table tennis table we have in the school without using virtual reality. So we do this throughout the session. So what does the virtual reality environment look like? So as you can see here, these are just 3 pictures of what the virtual reality environment within the VR looks like. So as you can see, the top picture there, you can see the table and you can see a board with the high score and the score. So each time that they would correctly complete the skill, their score would go up, and then we can keep a track on their high scores as well. And each of the participants are really keen to get higher and higher with their score each time, so it becomes quite competitive. Then you can see on the left-hand side, there is a board with all the different skills. So you can see that this says, the first one says bounce, so you can use the forehand or an alternative, and then the wall. So we go through each of these throughout the session. So each session we teach a certain skill. And within the virtual reality, it allows for a left hand or right hand. So the participant can select which one they choose. And then on the final picture on the right hand side, you can see that the table is folded. So that's where we're teaching them how to bounce the ball back and forth or control using the forehand or backhand, hitting it against a wall. So there's a video here just of one of our participants, and I just want to show you the first skill of how what it looks like when the participant is wearing the headset. And then you can see I zoom in on the laptop to show what we can see and what they can see. So this skill is developing control. So our participant is bouncing the ball on the bat and keeping an eye on it, and he's keeping an eye on his high score as well. So I'll just give only a short video here. There's no sound as well. So as you can see in that video there, he is just practicing bouncing the ball and developing control of it, and you can keep kept a score of his score in the session and then his high score. Then the next skill is another one of our participants. So this was hitting a ball against the wall. So as you can see here that they're using the movement of the forehand and they're hitting the ball and the bat using the controller. So for this particular participant, to teach the forehand to do the swing, to make the movement to hit the racket was particularly difficult. So this took a few sessions for this participant to stand in the position that they're supposed to stand in and slightly sway their hips as they hit the racket. So it doesn't come as naturally sometimes for some participants. So teaching a skill can take a little bit longer. So teaching that skill took about 3 weeks for this participant. So it was fantastic when he could finally get it. And then the final one then is receiving the serve. So this is another one of our participants. So this is practicing how the component hit the serve and he was receiving the serve. So as you can see here, he's using the forehand and the backhand. So he's going from either or, and that is the last skill within the receiving the serve. So he's combining the forehand and the backhand. And then just a little bit on our current progress at the moment, as it's an ongoing at the moment, we're not finished. I'll just go through a little bit of the progress so far. So prior to training our participants, we conducted a pre-test on their skills. So the skills of the table tennis, how well they were able to complete certain steps, and then their attitudes towards sport. So trying to understand what their current attitudes were. So just for an example, this was some of the pre-test that we looked at for skills. So we looked at, could they hold the racket correctly? Could they use the forehand drive? Could they use the backhand? Could they serve? Could they receive a serve? Could they engage in a rally or passing back and forth of the ball? And could they play continuously for 2 minutes? So we assessed these skills prior to teaching table tennis or the virtual reality. Then for the attitudes, what we asked the participants to do was rate from 1 to 5, so 1 being not very important and 5 being very important on the attitudes, on their attitudes towards sports. So we looked at how what they like to play sports or participate in sports more. How important is it that they enjoy sport? How important is it that they feel confident? How important is it that they understand sport? How important is it that they have knowledge about the sport that they're learning? How much do they enjoy playing table tennis? How confident do they feel about playing table tennis? How much do they understand about the sport of table tennis? And how much knowledge do they have about the skills needed to play table tennis? So we try to understand their attitudes prior to engaging in the training. So just a little bit on the progress so far. So these are some of our wonderful participants in the SPOUT program, and we have a total of 4 participants, and they're aged from 14 to 18 years of age, all who have no experience engaging in sports at all, or have no experience engaging in table tennis or knew what table tennis was. So they all came in having no experience at all. So I picked out 2 participants to show you the test of skill, their pre-test and their kind of current progress so far. As you can see, the top box was the pre-test of participant 2 of the skills. So we could see that they had none of the skills prior to engaging in the training. And then up until Christmas, the week before Christmas, we did a current progress or midway review. And as you can see, the participant has learned all the skills up to receiving a serve where we're at the moment. So each week they're learning the skill and they're progressing with the skill. With participant 4, you can see at the start, the top box was the pre-test. So before engaging in the training, they had none of the skills whatsoever. As you can see, with participant 4, we are flying through it with the midway review, still having a little bit of trouble receiving the serve, or can they serve, practicing the serve, hitting the serve can be a little bit difficult, so we're still focusing on that. But he has gone through the program and is doing absolutely fantastic. So as you can see there's the progression of the skills. And that is it for just the current progress of the SPOUT. If you have any questions or interested in finding more, I have the email address here for the SPOUT. And thank you very much for listening.
And I was just asking if we had any questions from the room at all.
I just have one question. Thanks, Rachel. Rachel, in your images there, I could see there was like a real table tennis table in the room. But I presume the data that you showed us was from the VR training.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
I was just wondering how well the VR training generalizes to real life playing, or have you looked at that?
Yeah, so that's not really, yeah, absolutely. We have noticed that the data we're taking on is just their kind of the skills, so the pre-test and their post-test. But you can see, so we have the table tennis table within the room. So we practice it with the virtual reality, and then we go to the table then, and you can see the progression of they've practiced it within the VR, the practice sessions. And then it generalizes to the table tennis table, so it's more practice. You can see when we first start, when we're at the table, they're not as interested, but the minute they put the virtual reality headset on and the practicing the skill and they're engaged in it, they really, really love the virtual reality in the environment. And one of the guys compares it to a video game that he doesn't want to get out of. And then when you take the virtual reality headset off after 15 minutes and you move to the table tennis table, you can see that they have generalized the skill, and they're quite they've progressed in the skill, and they're quite happy with it, and they're more likely to engage in that skill on the table tennis table rather than the start. So the virtual reality absolutely helps with. I think it's motivation as well, that they just love it, and all of them play video games as well, so they had that interest going in.
Just one follow-up question. Sorry, did anyone have any issue about wearing the headset?
No, nobody had an issue wearing the headset. Now, in a prior virtual reality program that I was involved in, there was a few, but no, none of the guys had an issue in this one. They all play video games for hours on end, but we had procedures put in place if any of the participants had struggled with the virtual reality headset. So we went through, we had a protocol in place, just familiarizing themselves, sitting down in the seat, then maybe getting up and stuff. So yeah, thankfully they didn't.
I just have one question as well. Is participation for this, is it ongoing? Are you looking for more participants, or is it kind of closed at this point?
Yeah, if people want to email, absolutely. It's kind of ongoing at the moment, but obviously it will be made available, and the link to download the Spout app will be made available very shortly as well. So it will be free to download. You just need to obviously buy the VR headset, which isn't the most expensive, or isn't the most cheapest, but yeah, the app will be available. Yeah, absolutely. If anyone's interested, just give me an email on the Spout research, and one of us will get in contact with you.
Lovely. Okay. So, any questions from online? I think we're good. Thank you very much, Rachel. That was great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Do we need to? Oh, we're back on.
Yeah,
they can see me. Yeah, perfect.
Welcome for everyone.
Do I have to do something?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Off you go.
Yes. Thank you. So we're going to move into our last presentation of the day, which is Dr. Aviva Cohen. Aviva Cohen is the CEO of Seamless Care. This is an award-winning technology startup and the creator of the empathic mobile app. This app is using AI to interpret vocalizations of non-verbal people in order to identify their emotions. It's a very innovative and exciting app. It supports people, not only people with autism, people with intellectual disabilities and dementia, to kind of express a range of their emotions. And it is improving the lives and reducing frustrations for these individuals throughout their life. So we're very lucky to have Aviva talk to us today. So thank you very much. I'll hand you the floor. Move out your way. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So empathic came from my own personal experience. I think, like one of the previous speakers, one of the interesting things is that you can learn from your own life experience. In 2006, my husband and my karate instructor for 20 years had a severe stroke, and it rendered him profoundly disabled. He lost his ability to think. He couldn't speak at all, and he was paralyzed on his right side. So I remember one of the first things they did was they presented a picture of a cat and a picture of a hammer, and he didn't know which one was which, and that was where we started. So to cut a very long story very, very short, I had been a researcher. I was lecturing in philosophy and communications. So I did what I knew how to do, and I did research. And I did that basically 18 or 20 hours a day, fitting in our two babies at the time as well. So over the years, I produced a research website looking at therapies for stroke that people didn't typically talk about, including stem cell therapy, hyperbaric oxygen, that sort of thing. And over the years, a lot of those things helped Steve. We ended up on the newspapers, on TV shows. They did a Irish prime time on us because he started to come back. But his speech never did. So I then started to develop apps, speech language therapy apps, working with speech language therapists. And over the years with NeuroCure, we developed 19 apps in 6 languages, delivering mainly semantic feature analysis. But unfortunately, we lost Steve, but the impetus that he had given me to continue on never left. So I was invited, somebody heard me on a radio show and invited me to do a postdoctoral research fellowship. And that's where this part of the story begins. So how will I move this on? Thank you. Okay. So where we are now is I've developed an app with an amazing team that I'll talk about a little later called Empathic. This app is really designed for people who don't have the ability to use other forms of assistive tech. Maybe people who don't have bodily control, so they can't use eye gaze. Maybe they don't have the cognitive ability to use PECs. I know Steve, for example, wasn't able to do any of those things for a very long time. He did learn over the years, but there are a lot of people who never get there, or maybe in advanced dementia who lose the ability to use that sort of device. So what Empathic does is you as a care provider or somebody coming into your home as a visitor or a professional staff member on your phone or an iPad or any mobile device, you record the person vocalizing for 5 to 10 seconds. Artificial intelligence analyzes their vocalization and it tells you which emotion they're expressing. Now, I know for us, frustration was always an emotion that Steve would express when things weren't going his way. And it's not something that people would typically pick up on because unless you know the person well, of course, we all know our own loved one well, but other people come into your home or when somebody's in a hospital or a daycare setting, there are people who won't understand that individual. So Empathic is for everybody. So that individual who has additional needs can vocalize and their vocalization is understood. Somebody can say, I can see that you're upset with this. I can see this is making you happy. And it's a way that you can engage and connect with that person. Again, this is a very short video that gives you an overview.
Use Empathic API and mobile app to understand how a non-verbal person feels by recording their vocalizations. Empathic is built on the HL7 FIRE framework. It can interpret up to 10 emotions, so everyone has the opportunity to independently express their feelings. Setting up the app is intuitive. Your data is encrypted and uploaded to the Seamless Care secure server. Using the app couldn't be easier. Simply record as the person vocalizes. You can stop manually or wait for 10 seconds. Artificial intelligence will interpret the communication and tell you how that person is feeling. You can train empathic for each individual. Just accept, reject, or edit the interpretation. To customize the app, select the emoji that best represents the emotion being expressed. You can also review your recordings. You can share a version of Empathic with others. Our companion feature allows you to add up to 20 users without charge. Companion users are typically care providers, family, or friends who don't always understand the nonverbal person. Empathic helps you to understand someone with speech difficulties. It offers that person the opportunity to communicate independently.
So that gives you a general overview of how the app works. And the fact that it's built on the HL7 Fire framework means that it's a mobile app that sits on your phone, but we can also integrate it into other things like into smart environments. We can fit it with technologies that are already in existence. It also means that it's really secure. Just breaking it down, very simple. You point, you press the record button. I was never very good at technology. So the tech team I have around me, they've come up with this, the Aviva's absolute simplicity principle. So they put a big red button on it and they go, everybody knows that's record. They go, I don't, you have to write the word record on it. So the idea is that anybody, especially people who are not familiar with technology, pick it up, press the button, and they know what to do. So we chose the 10 emotions that were most recognizable. I treated this, I used to teach philosophy, so I treated this like a kind of a proper research project where we actually gathered data from speech language therapists and other healthcare professionals and families to find out the easiest emotions to identify. And they're the ones we've included in this. But you'll see there's a section there that says something else. So what we've done over the years, we've been collecting data to train the artificial intelligence. If somebody's just hungry or they just want your phone, you know, not every vocalization is about expressing an emotion. You add in hungry, pain, want something, so that when we have enough of those recordings, we can then produce another screen that has all of those additional things, and this app can continue to grow. Again, the companion app, that's interesting because we wanted to make sure the artificial intelligence was being trained on very accurate data. All of the data we've collected to date has been done in closed data collection. But we've now, in the last couple of months, we've opened it up to open beta. Only the account holder, only the person who's actually in charge of the app can edit the data. Companion users could be anybody. It could be a teacher in a school, somebody in a daycare center. It could be the person who drives your loved one to wherever they're going. They can use Empathic, but they don't get to train the data. They need it because they don't already know what emotion that person is expressing, but we don't trust them to continue to add information. So that's why companion users, when this becomes available commercially, it will be $9.99, but for that you get to add 3 people if you're a family user, but you get to give it for free to 20 others. And in an institutional environment, it's a different setup. Institutions will get bulk licenses. And this is your recordings. So we did a huge amount of testing with families and in institutions. A lot of this work came out of my postdoctoral research fellowship. It was a Marie Curie assisted co-fund. And we worked with Daughters of Charity and with numerous other organizations. We got a lot of interesting feedback. One was, we would like to have an archive of recordings. So when somebody comes and meets my loved one or the person I'm working with, I'd like to play, you know, this is how he or she sounds when they're unhappy or excited or sad, or if you hear this, call me, so that you can actually play back recordings. The testing now we did, I've been working on this type of thing now for years. We've gathered, and even these figures don't represent how many more people since the open beta, loads of people have signed up. And the artificial intelligence has been trained on thousands and thousands of samples. And we're looking for more open beta testers, either in families or institutions or whoever. It also works on different languages. It works on European languages. We haven't yet trained the AI for tonal languages, but we're already starting to work with other countries, and we can localize it very easily. So the benefits that we have been told Empathic has is that it not only enhances the communication, so a non-verbal person can express their emotion, but it's like a conversation starter. You know, as I see you're frustrated, let's try and work out what's going on. But also, unexpected things have happened over the lifetime of the testing, where we had, for example, one lady who is over 40, and she had never attempted a functional communication. But after months of using Empathic, where people were paying really close attention to what she was saying, to her voice, she lost her shoe when she was out for a walk, and she came home and she said, shut, shut. And it was the first time she'd ever tried to make a functional sound. And even her family didn't realize that she had that level of understanding. So there's all sorts of really exciting stories coming back to us on the impact this can have. People's challenging behaviors have reduced because they're less frustrated, because people are recognizing the frustration earlier. That's having a knock-on effect on their mood, on their quality of life. It's also increasing the safety, because as we know, and as was talked about before, frustration can become it can result in challenging behaviors, and that has an impact on families and staff, as well as possibly causing people to fall or self-harm. So understanding how a person feels has a really important consequence in terms of health and safety. We are pilot testing. Our pilot tests are various. We're pilot testing with numerous types of institutions, people with stroke, with autism, with advanced dementia, Rett syndrome, and a whole series of other conditions. Some people are choosing to measure mood in very rigorous clinical settings. Some are measuring challenging behaviors as well. And some are just giving us feedback on how the app is working, how they feel about it. So if anybody is interested in joining a pilot test, we would love to hear from you. And again, families at home are using the app and just giving us feedback. We're looking at a 2-month pilot test at the moment. In terms of localizing, what's very exciting is that the way we have been able to build Empathic, we can actually localize it for each country very quickly. At the moment, we are in negotiations in 3 countries, and we are expanding. We're getting calls, and we're talking to people from all over. So it's actually really exciting at the moment. And we're hoping that, you know, almost every month will be able to localize for another country. There isn't really a barrier in language, which is one of the really interesting consequences of the research we've done so far. It's an area you want to do more research in, but so far our analysis shows that it doesn't matter what your language of origin was. The way we're measuring the sound waves and the things that we're measuring are not specific to the original language that you have learned, or for some people who have never heard language or never learned language, spoken language. Again, this will be in the stores at next month, actually, which is very exciting. So we are offering the mobile app for $9.99, and then we have the institutional licenses or API integration is available as well. And one of the amazing things that happened, like we've been very, very fortunate to have been funded by Enterprise Ireland, who have been amazingly supportive of our work. Nova UCD has been incredibly supportive. But actually, Frank Dolphin is the former chair of the HSE, and he asked, could he become our angel investor? He heard a presentation, something like this, and we met a number of times, and he's now our angel investor and a huge wealth of information and support. So we're incredibly lucky to have him on board as well. And it's just lovely that he also believes in what we're doing. We have a phenomenal team. I'm not going to spend hours talking about them, but I could. Just to point out a couple, Ian and I worked on Neuro Hero. We built 19 apps in 6 languages and won awards all over the world. And it was mainly due to Ian's design work, which is phenomenal. And he did all the beautiful videos that you saw. Chagri there, the other co-founder, the 3 co-founders are on the top. I was the deputy director of PhD program in UCD in the engineering department, and I had the privilege of being one of the examiners on his PhD panel. And he had written one of the most brilliant theses I'd ever read. So of course, as soon as he graduated, I asked him to join the team, which he did, and he's a pleasure to work with too. So I won't go into everybody's background, but we're very lucky to have such an amazing team. And that's empathic and seamless care. So I'm happy to talk about anything that I've mentioned so far in more detail.
So just so I understand how it works, a person has an app, or someone has a caregiver maybe has the app, and the person who wants to communicate makes a vocalization of some kind, and then that shows up a visual message on the app. Is that correct?
Yes, you have it on your phone. It's facial ID, so it's 2-factor authentication. Make sure it's secure. You literally, somebody starts to vocalize, you hold it up, it looks at you, you press record, or you select which person you'd like to record, you press record, and within seconds, it just analyzes that sound and it tells you which emotion that person is expressing.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. And how much, I'm particularly interested in pain research, my main area of interest. Where are you at with the pain vocalization?
So we have collected a number of vocalizations that relate to pain. Now we're not registered as a medical device. We are, it takes about 2 years of, as you know, it's quite a process to be registered as a medical device. So what we're doing now is we're building that case, but we're launching without pain, the identification of pain, because we're not yet a medical device. That is something that we will move to in the future. But as we're going and people select other, and they can register pain as one of the things they have recorded, but we can't present that until after we're registered as a medical device, but we're collecting data, so it's fine.
People can add it in when they edit the emotions.
They can add it in, yeah. So we're collecting data on all sorts of things that you don't see in those 10 emotions. And we'll know what is most relevant to people over time.
And I know it's a completely different area because
Sure.
this is all about vocalization,
Yeah.
but is there, do you see yourself being able to incorporate facial expression?
So we've decided not to focus on facial expression. We're measuring, at the moment, it's over 20 different points of sound of audio recording. So we're measuring that. The reason we're not doing facial recognition is that there are already good apps out there that do that. But for a lot of the people that we're working with and for, because everything is inclusively designed, we work with people. Their facial expressions very often are not reliable. So, for example, Steve had a stroke and his facial expressions were not typical, were not the same as when he was neurotypical. A lot of the people that we work with maybe have cerebral palsy or have other conditions that render their facial expressions not easy to read and not recognizable by some of the technologies you're talking about.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This is interesting. I wonder when it does become available, is it going to be available on the kind of the typical app stores, or is it something that people have to contact you about?
No, it's just out there on the stores. Like you just download it. I'm very careful of making sure that nobody gets tied into anything. We were very careful about the price point. A lot of people are saying it's not enough, you need to charge more. And I know I've never been able to kind of go down that purely kind of commercial route, but it's we wanted families to be able to afford this. So you could just download it on your phone from the stores. Talk to a lot of families. They were saying it's the price of what a Chinese takeaway for one person, and they could manage that. So that's what we went with. The hospitals, rehab centers, hospices, the other institutions will be buying bulk licenses. That's a different model, and that requires, I mean, it's still low cost, but if they want a lot over 1,000 licenses, we're talking about API integration, and then that's a slightly different thing again.
Very refreshing to see it being offered at such an affordable price.
I was a family carer for almost 15 years, so I'm telling you, I want people to be able to have it. It's the most important thing for us is that people get to use this.
I have another question. As the users use the app, do you find that it becomes more reliable, the AI, but it's based kind of on their vocalizations as opposed to the kind of bank vocalizations? Does it become more reliable over time?
Yeah.
That this is what they are.
So
from them.
As we've been building this, the more vocalizations we have, and we've been building AI models from the start, and we've been refining those models all the time. We're very happy with the level we have now. The first version of the app is built on general data sets. So in the next iteration of the app, slightly later, you'll be able to make it more bespoke for your person. But there is actually enough of a consistency. We found an unusually high level of consistency within all happy sounds or all upset sounds, where yes, we will build a future version that will allow you to refine it for your individual person, but it's not as necessary as you would think at the moment.
Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you.
Great.
Take us home, Ryan.
Take us home. Okay, can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So a fascinating array of talks all morning. Hearing about new technologies to help people with autism and other disabilities. Lots of personal stories, really relevant stuff for clinicians and practitioners and people out there in the field working in this area. So it's been an absolutely fantastic lineup of speakers. So I want to do another round of applause for all the speakers, if we might. And I also would like to do a round of applause again for Jenny for organising the conference. And final round of applause for Cormac, who earned his money for that. And we'll close it off at that. Thanks again for the people who attended in person and also for the people who registered online. I could see that we had 20 to 30 people most of the time, so it was great to have that level of attendance as well online. And so I wish everybody well for their afternoon. Thanks again. All the best.